Yasin, and they're almost like superheroes. They can see when you tell a lie. So bewaar your seal that you said you did bacha and you didn't bacha. And then there was a dua that you had to bacha when you left your home. There's a dua that you read when you leave your home. And then there's a dua that you read when you enter your car. Right? So these are the things that may become more practical on, inshallah. Because we're moving towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we become more practical in it, then basically everything ahead of us will be easy, because we practically been doing it all our life. And even if we started a while ago, things will become much more easier for us. And may Allah grant us the tawfiq of implementing and being consistent, inshallah. Ameen. So the dua that is recited, I remember, was Bismillah, amantu billah, tawakkaltu ala Allah, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. And Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam says the one who recites and reads this dua, then he is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah then becomes sufficient for him. Right? What is the dua? That is sufficed. Is he with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, protected by Allah, and that the shaitan is far from him. And the shaitan is far from him. Now, so today we'll continue. We journey through the intention, and maybe we can just quickly, for the next 2-3 minutes, just ask somebody what intentions can we add to our intentions last week for Hajj. Remember, we don't have one Hajj. We're not just going for Hajj, right? We are adding the intention with our Hajj. So one of the uncles, where's that uncle that was sitting last week for the classes? Sitting here in the middle. He said that we should add in our intention truthfulness. May Allah grant us sidq in our Hajj, inshallah. Ameen. And then somebody added that we connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And somebody added that we perhaps maybe that Allah grant us an extra love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and an extra love for Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and an extra love for ibadah, for our worship towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So maybe we can add the intention. And can we rather just ask, or should I just point out someone to ask? Okay. Anybody from the males that wants to share niyyah? Uncle, maybe uncle can share niyyah with us today.
My intention is to ensure my intention is to purify the soul as to state we and be to be external.
Ameen. Ameen. May Allah grant us pure hearts, inshallah. Ameen. Tathhirul qalb, that's the purification of one's heart, which is important. Yeah. One of the prophetic du'as, and this is perhaps maybe something we can memorize if we don't know it, or if we do know it, then maybe just start re-implementing it again. There are so many actions of the Prophet ﷺ which we know of, and there's so many that we know that we don't implement. Right? And there are actions that we perhaps maybe do not know, and that could be easy for us to implement. One of the prophetic du'as the Prophet ﷺ made was, when looking into the mirror, right? Allahumma kama hassanta khalqi fa hassin khuluqi. Oh Allah, as you beautified myself outwardly, beautify me inwardly. So the Prophet ﷺ is reminding us that the concentration is not just the outward features, but the concentration more is that which is inside. Right? And hence the Prophet ﷺ, he reminded us about that purification of the inward when standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I may be doing something outwardly, but what is my heart saying to me? I may be here physically, but I'm actually outside. I may be here physically, but I'm actually counting numbers in my head, or how I can produce certain things tomorrow, or etc, etc, etc. I may be present, but I'm actually not present. So may I ask Allah that Allah grant us tathhir, purification of the hearts, inshallah. Ameen. On this Hajj. Ameen. Another male? Maybe the uncle with the bright blue top on. It's such a nice top. He's looking to his left, almost like somebody else got the same color top on. Don't worry, uncle, you're the only one with that top on today. Do Bismillah, share intention with us. Anything that comes to mind. You were here last week, right? Oh, you weren't here last week? Oh, sorry. But you can still share intention, it's fine. So you don't know about the homework, but you're a good student, so you're gonna. Ya Rab, Ameen. Ameen. That's an important intention. With the niyyah that Allah forgives us, inshallah. Ameen. Say Ameen, inshallah. Ameen. Ameen. Allah is prepared to forgive, right? May we be included in the forgiveness, inshallah. Allah is prepared to forgive. Remember that forgiveness is very special, right? That forgiveness is special for you and the people you leave behind. Everybody is included in that forgiveness. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma gfir lil hajj wa liman istaghfara lahum lil hajj. Oh Allah, forgive the haji and forgive all those people that the hajis seek forgiveness for. And may Allah grant us that, inshallah, ameen. One of our mashayikh reminded us by saying that we are still benefiting from the dua of Rasulullah ﷺ the day he made that dua on Arafah. When we were not there, he asked forgiveness for us already that day. We are still benefiting from the istighfar of Sayyidina Muhammadin. So may Allah forgive us, inshallah, ameen. One of the ladies, and then we'll conclude. One of the ladies, all the ladies till today, all the heads are down. I know that's part of the niyyah of Hajj that I'm going to start looking down from today on. But last week everybody was looking up. So maybe we can ask the lady that's sitting on my nice couch. It's a very comfortable couch that I have in the masjid. It's my favorite couch. That auntie can just share niyyah with us at the back there, inshallah. It's the only lady I can actually see from here. Yes. Maybe you can say it and then someone can just share it that is close by to her that we can also hear, inshallah. Now, what did she say? Yes? Oh, ameen, ameen. Say ameen, inshallah. That's a beautiful niyyah. May Allah increase us in our yaqeen, in our conviction in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in our knowing that Allah will respond subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to have yaqeen, you have to have certainty that I'm not just going by the way, and I don't just raise my hands by the way. On the other side of me raising my hands, there is somebody listening, and that somebody or that someone subhanahu wa ta'ala is responding. That must have that yaqeen. I'm not just raising for nothing. There is Allah that's actually listening, that will subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond. We have to have that. May Allah grant us that yaqeen. Ameen, inshallah, ameen. Next week we'll add some more niyas, inshallah. Some of the men and some of the women can share with us more niyas, inshallah. We continue. We don't have much time. We want to try to cover quite a bit today, inshallah. The few topics or the headings for this evening. We'll be talking about Safar Salah very briefly. Right, just the very gist of it, the very brief gist of the Safar Salah. Then we will go into Madinah, inshallah. And may Allah take us to Madinah, inshallah, ameen. And then we will visit the qabr of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ameen, inshallah. And then we will speak about some virtue therein, inshallah. So the first heading for this evening, I'm saying afternoon because it's baie warm. Subhanallah. May Allah, as a practice for the Hajj, Mawlana. May Allah grant us coolness in our grave, inshallah. Allah grant us a coolness that will enter in our grave, and a breeze of Jannah that will enter into our grave, inshallah. And those that have passed on, may Allah elevate them and grant that the grave be a coolness to them, inshallah, ameen. And an ease for them, and a peace for them, and a joy for them, ameen, inshallah. And may they benefit from A'la al-Firdaus, and all of us, ma'an nabiyeen and siddiqeen and shuhada and salihin, ameen, rabbil alameen. La ilaha illallah. Safar Salah. Safar Salah. Right? Safar Salah is the Salah of traveling. Right? We're going to go to it very quickly. So there's two types of the Safar Salah. The first one we're going to speak about is Jam. So Jam is the combining of the Salah. The combining of the Salah. These are something that is familiar to us, but we're just repeating it. If it's already familiar to you, we're just repeating it for the sake of being practical, that this is going to definitely happen to you on this journey of Hajj, where you're going to be making a jam either on your traveling, going, or on your return, or even in the city or from city to city, right? So there's a jam salah that is made according to Imam Shafi'i, which is known as jam taqdeem and jam ta'khir. A jam that is delayed, a delayed salah, or a bringing forward of a salah, right? So taqdeem and ta'khir. So taqdeem is when you bring the salah forward, ta'khir is when you delay the salah. A very basic simple example to this, taqdeem is when you bring asr to the waqt of dhuhr. That's understood, right? When you bring the waqt of asr to dhuhr. So we're making dhuhr salah, but we are also making our asr salah, because we're bringing dhuhr asr forward. Okay? Or depending on the situation or the circumstance, depending on where you are, what place you are, and at the time of arrival of your first destination, will there be enough time to make ta'khir for you to delay that salah, right? To delay it, to perform it later, meaning you're going to delay asr into the waqt, you're going to be delaying dhuhr into the waqt of asr. And the reason why I mentioned these few words is that you need to look at your destination. You need to look at the time of your arrival of that destination. You need to look at where you are going to be at a certain time, and that is where you're going to be establishing whether I'm going to bring it forward or whether I'm going to delay it. Why is this important? It's because the salah standing is better than the salah sitting. And if you are able to be making the salah standing, then it's preferable that you be making the salah standing than the salah sitting. But if there is a situation where you are unable at all to be performing the salah standing, because standing in salah is actually compulsory. Even the brothers and sisters that sit on a chair, but they are able to stand, the salah is incomplete because they did not stand. That is very important. We have many people sitting in the masjid. In all masajid, many people sit in the masjid, but they have reason for sitting in the masjid. Perhaps maybe the reason is the ankles or the knees, or perhaps maybe the reason is they can't go down in prostration, but they can stand, because they stand outside talking for long hours with people, but when it comes to standing for salah, you can't stand. So you're not fooling anyone but yourself. So if you do not stand in salah, then the salah is invalid if you are able to stand. But if you are unable to stand, then it's a different situation, because now you are unable to stand, hence you're sitting. But if you are able to stand, then you need to stand, right? So similarly, when you are performing the jam salah, you need to look at the situation. Is there going to be time for me to be making my asr and dhuhr later? Because currently I don't have enough time because I came a bit late to the airport, etc. My first destination is going to be wherever it is. I'm definitely going to be missing my asr, right? So I rather perform the asr now in the time of dhuhr, knowing that I have completed my asr in a standing position, right? However, there may be a situation where fajr, for example, the flight is in the morning early and you're flying through fajr, right? Do not be that difficult passenger where you say, no, the sheikh said I must stand in my salah, because if I don't stand, my salah is not valid. At that situation, you find yourself not having a place to stand, and you can't be difficult because there may be a space at the back, but if they're going to allow one, they're going to allow all, they're going to have to allow all. So don't be that difficult passenger, but rather make the salah in your seat sitting and complete the farad in your seat sitting, right? So you can either delay it or you could either bring it forward, right? This is only determined by the time in the air or the land or where you reach and what time you reach. So you either bring it forward or either to delay. You're allowed, yes, this is a common question. Are you allowed to make salah in my chair? Yes, you're allowed to make salah in your chair. But you need to check the time in where you are transiting. If there's going to be enough time for you to be making salah at the time of your first transit, then why would you still want to make salah in your chair if you can delay it till later? Especially for Isha, this happens quite often. For Isha, so Maghrib salah enters and just 3 hours earlier you were in the air, right? And Maghrib enters. At your first destination, you're going to definitely be making it for Isha, because Fajr in summer is about 4 a.m. or 4 a.m., something like that, 4:30 a.m. You will arrive at your first destination, whether it be in Adas, which is going to be at about 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., or whether it be in Emirates, is going to be about 12 a.m. There's still 5 hours left or 4 hours left for you to be making your Isha. So you could rather delay your Maghrib and make Isha, Maghrib and Isha at a delayed time for Maghrib and performing it in the time of Isha, but obviously that is according to your times, right? What is a long safar? So you get a qasr tawil and then you get a qasr saghir. Qasr saghir we're not going to be discussing because that's a bit complicated in the sense that we may just misunderstand that, and yeah, so we're going to speak about qasr tawil. Qasr tawil is general for Shafi'i and for Hanafi. For Shafi'i, it is when you are more than 88 kilometers away from your home, or for the Hanafi, it is more than 77 kilometers away from your home, then you are allowed to make qasr. According to Imam Shafi, you are allowed to make qasr and jam. According to Abu Hanifa, you're only allowed to make qasr, but you're not allowed to make jam. That understood? Right? So for the Shafi'i, qasr and jam after 88 kilometers. For the Hanafi, qasr only after 77 kilometers, only qasr and not jam. Any questions? Understood, right? We're going to leave it at that. We don't want to go to too much detail. That's understood, right? Can we go on? No question? It's very simple. So just to recap, so you either delay your salah or you bring your salah forward. Number one. Depending on how far your distance is, that is depending on whether you can make qasr. What is qasr? What is qasr? When you shorten the salah. For example, dhuhr salah is actually 4, but you allowed to make 2 as a farad, which will be a complete farad because it's allowance that the Sharia gives, because you have traveled more than 88 kilometers, so you're allowed to make that farad in 2 rak'ats. Asr is 2 rak'ats, Maghrib is 1.5 rak'ats, Isha is 2 rak'ats, and Fajr is 1 rak'at. Is that correct? No? No? We repeated, huh? Dhuhr is 2 rak'ats in qasr. Asr is 2 rak'ats in qasr. Maghrib is what? Still 3, right? Still remains 3. Isha is 2, and Fajr? Oh, the guys are like, yo, Fajr 1, yo, liquor. Fajr is also 2, right? Fajr is also 2. Fajr is also 2. Fajr is also 2. La ilaha illallah. May we benefit from the sunnah of Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and every instruction of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is based on love. Every instruction of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and every action of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and every advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is based on love. Everything is based on love. He loved his ummah so much that he wanted to do his best, or he did his best rather, to make it as easy as possible. He made it best as possible, SallAllahu wasallam, to make every aspect of the deen very easy. No matter where you are, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam made it easy for us. We go on. So now we're leaving our home, and we know the dua that we leave our home. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reminded us that hold on to your tongue and let your home be sufficient for you, and cry over your wrongdoings. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke about when Uqba bin Amir radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, Ya Rasulullah, what is the path to salvation? The path to salvation, the path to success, it's just to hold on to your tongue. That's a very important advice for Hajj. You may see things that are not so nice, don't speak about it. You may hear things that are not so nice, don't speak about it. Last week, what was the verse last week? What was the verse last week? La rafatha, wa la fusuqa, وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. No arguing, no unnecessary arguing and going on with each other. The Prophet ﷺ says, if you want success in any affair, not only for Hajj, in any affair, rather just keep quiet. You see something? Just keep quiet. And let your home suffice you, the Prophet ﷺ says. I'm just thinking now, subhanAllah. You know Sayyidina Umar? Subhanallah. Sayyidina Umar said, the one who eats meat every day. And some of the ulama say that this is a metaphor that he's using, and it also could be mean literally. And a metaphor meaning that speaking about luxury. So Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala says, the one who eats meat every day, it's a sign of his weak iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who eats meat. The one who's just comfortable with luxury. And when there's no more luxury, he feels down, sad, and what's the word? He gets his palpitations, and then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us in goodness, inshallah, ameen. And the Prophet ﷺ says, cry over the wrong. So what do we do when we leave our home? We go through this very quickly. We make 2 rak'ats of safar salah. It's also important. It's part of sunnah. 2 rak'ats of salah to safar. So after they pack the bags, etc., people come to your home, make the dua. And before you make this dua in your room, you make 2 rak'ats, sunnat of safar. with the niyyah that Allah protects you on this journey, going and coming, inshallah, ameen, and protects your family, and protects your household, protects your belongings, protects your wealth, protects the community, and grants you good health, inshallah, going and coming. So sunnah salah, safar salah. To give adhan is part of sunnah. That's not a baykhalufi. You know, there's many a times you find that without knowledge, and then we like to slander without knowledge. Then we say this is wrong and that is wrong, and where did he find this and where did he find that? To give adhan is part of sunnah. When you're leaving your home, not for Hajj only. We traditionally do it for Hajj. We traditionally do it for Hajj. Even though it's part of sunnah, we traditionally do it for the Hajj time. But it's actually sunnah to do it all the time. To make adhan wherever, whenever you are going to travel. You go to Joburg and you leave from your house, you make adhan. Right? Right? There are many other occasions where the adhan is given. The adhan is given when? When you see, this is a sunnah that is actually very neglected. Because we've replaced the sunnah, or there's a part of this ummah, and may Allah protect us from this, where we are quick to jump for the phone when something bad happens, instead of thinking of what would Rasulullah do, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's sunnah to give adhan when you see a fire. When you see a fire, big fire, sunnah to make adhan. It's sunnah to make adhan, not take out your phone when you see an accident and be bisakh. No. The sunnah is when you see an accident, sunnah is to make adhan. When you see a jinn, sunnah to make adhan. When somebody is possessed, sunnah to make adhan. And when the child is born, what does he do? Make adhan. What else? Anybody else? Eh? Fire, yeah, we said there's a fire. Fire, we said, yeah, for the adhan, you must make adhan. Right? So also part of the sunnah is when you're traveling, when you leave your home, it's also part of the sunnah to make adhan. It should become a habit in our homes also to make adhan for each salah. Because technically speaking, listen now, technically speaking, the adhan that plays in our home that is not live is actually not the adhan. The adhan that plays in our home that is not live, that radio adhan, you know the sunnah is you shouldn't be talking during the adhan. Right? But the sunnah is you shouldn't be talking during the live adhan. That's a recording, that's not adhan. That's not somebody making adhan. That's a recording, that's a button is being pressed and the recording is playing. That is just a reminder that it's salah. But the actual adhan is when you hear the adhan. And if you're unable to hear the adhan in your home, wherever you're staying, then it's actually sunnah to make the adhan in your home when before performing salah. So you make the adhan. Okay, we won't go on to that too much. Tamam? You leave with your left foot. That's what we said last week, right? Guys are confused now. Who went back to their mommy's home to leave with their left foot? Nobody? Atas? You didn't go back. That means everything is going lekker your side, no? If everything is going lekker your side, that means you left with your left foot the day you got married. But if everything is not going so lekker in your house, then just go back to your mommy's house and leave your mommy's house with the left foot, because the day you got married, you went out with the wrong foot. That's why things are not going so lekker. So, atas, everything is going lekker, no? Bismillah, amantu billah, tawakkaltu ala Allah, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyul azim. La ilaha illallah. Is there any questions before we go on? We're going to Madinah now, inshallah. Is there any, not a logistical question, right, that we're going to speak about, maybe at the very last class we'll speak about logistics and stuff like that. Anything with regards to logistics we're not going to be touching into now, whether it be in Madinah logistics, Makkah logistics, that we'll speak about at the very end. But based on the fact that we have the intention in our home, we know now what to do, we're now leaving, and the logistical part we'll speak about again, and now we're going towards Madinah. Madinatul Munawwara. Yes, shukran. Your name first, uncle. Did he say Dilawar or did he say Bilal? Dilawar Kumandan? You got my name? Oh, I got your name. Now we quiet ones. There's only a few of us around.
come and I make asr, I make dua, I bring asr closer. Should I not have waited because I got to go to the mosque and then asr?
Where?
Like a job, like now you say we go on a trip.
Yes.
So when we get to wherever, there's a Jamaat, they will already made my salah because I jumped.
Yeah.
So should I not jump?
Look, it's a preference.
Because it was a Jamaat, it would be better.
Yeah, of course. So it's a preference, right? If you know that there's going to be time for me to join a Jama'ah at the time of my destination, joining the Jama'ah is better. 100%. Right? And if I know that the time I reach, I'm not going to be making it in time to perform a salah in Jama'ah, then I should rather make it qasr. And I should rather join it. Right? So it all depends on the circumstance, right? There's a Jama'ah, I made my qasr, I made my jam, I made my dhuhr and my asr in Cape Town. At the airport, I reached Johannesburg, they're still making asr, I find the Jama'ah, I go join my asr, no problem. You can join your asr, right? If you repeat your asr, it's actually also part of sunnah, just by the way. To repeat a farul salah is actually part of sunnah. It's called i'ada in the Shafi school. I'ada, the repetition of a salah. And why is it sunnah? Because just in case there was a salah that you have missed when you were younger, where you never really had wudu properly, it's a make-up for that salah. Or any other qada that maybe you forgot about, it's a make-up for that salah. And hence Makkah and Madinah is the opportunity we must take to make all the extra salahs that we missed in our life, because 1 is to 1,000, 1 is to 10,000, and in Makkah 1 is to 100,000. I make 1 extra du'a, I got 100,000 du'as. You must have high hopes in Allah, right? You must think good of Allah. Now, so yes, when you see the Jama'ah,
Question again, so I go to Joburg, I go and I'm doing my kasar, I'm bringing forward one. But I could have waited because there'll be a Jamaat later, so then you don't bring it forward.
then you don't bring it forward, yes, yes.
So go to the Jamaat.
You can do it with the Jama'ah now.
Because I asked somebody, he said, no, this is a favor upon you.
Look, it's all preference, it's all preference. Yeah.
Why not taking a favor? Because I'm taking it too.
No, it's all a preference. Look, if the Jama'ah is there, then of course we take the preference over the Jama'ah than making it alone. That's definite. Right? A Jama'ah takes preference over making Salah alone. Right? And if you know with certainty that I'm going to make it for a Jama'ah, I would rather not make my jump. I would rather just make my qasr and join the Jama'ah later. Tamam? La ilaha illallah. Madinatul Munawwarah. Allah. You've seen that before? You've seen that before? Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. May Allah take us to Madinah, inshallah. La ilaha illallah. A picture cannot describe the beauty of Madinah. You can only but try to imagine its beauty. But a picture can never tell the story. They say picture tells a story. Madinah's picture don't tell a story. You have to go experience that story. It may tell a little bit of a story, but not the real story. Madinah, the city of love. Madinah, the city of the Ansar. They help us. The Prophet ﷺ says, Hubbul Ansar min al-Iman. Love the Ansar is part of Iman. The city of mercy. The city of compassion. The city wherein the Prophet ﷺ united enemies. The city wherein the Prophet ﷺ expressed what brotherhood is all about, what real brotherhood is about, what real love is all about. The city of Shifa, the city of the cure. Medina was known as Yathrib before. Right? Yathrib, you know what's Yathrib? Yathrib is a city of sickness. When the Prophet entered Medina, Medina was known as Munawwara, the city of Shifa, the illuminated city. Medina al-Munawwara, the illuminated city, the city of cure. The city wherein Jannah is. You want to go to Jannah? You go to Medina, you'll find Jannah. There's a Jannah in the dunya, you know. Everybody's waiting for Jannah in the year after. May Allah grant us Jannah, inshallah. But there's a Jannah in the dunya also. There's 3 different Jannahs in the dunya. 3 different Jannahs in the dunya. 3 different places where Jannah is in the dunya. The one Jannah is at the masjid of Rasulullah SallAllahu, between his grave and the mimbar is a Jannah. part of Jannah. The other Jannah, the scholars speak about between the Rukn Yamani and the Hajar al-Aswad is a portion, a part of Jannah. It's a Rawdatul Jannah. It's a garden of Jannah between the Rukn Yamani and the Hajar al-Aswad is part of Jannah. You know what's another Jannah? This gathering is a Jannah. Prophet ﷺ says that seek out the gatherings of knowledge, for indeed the gatherings of knowledge is a rawdatun min riyadil Jannah. The gatherings of knowledge is a garden from the gardens of Jannah. So we are currently sitting in Jannah. May Allah grant us to be in abode of highest abodes in Jannah, inshallah. As we are sitting in the gardens of Jannah in this dunya, may Allah grant us a garden of Jannah in the akhirah, inshallah. May Allah grant us Jannah with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions and his family and the awliya and the salihin, ameen, and our parents, ya Rabb, ameen, inshallah. So when we speak about the virtues of Madinah to Munawwara, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says love for Madinah, the city of the Hijrah. The Prophet ﷺ says Madinah is purifies, softens people's heart just as fire would melt iron. The Prophet ﷺ says at the entrance of Madinah there's an angel that only allows obedient slaves, and Dajjal will not enter into Madinah. The Prophet ﷺ says Salah in Madinatul Munawwara. In one hadith it says 1,000 rewards is received in performing Salah in Madinah. In another hadith the Prophet said 10,000 rewards is received in one Salah in Madinatul Munawwara. 10,000 rewards, one Salah. La ilaha illallah. The Prophet ﷺ prayed for Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ says, Allahumma ja'al bil Madinati di'fay ma ja'ala bi Makkah min al barakah. Oh Allah, grant whatever is in Medina double the blessings of what you've granted that which is in Makkah. Double the blessings of what you have gifted Makkah, give Medina double of that. Right? La ilaha illallah. The Prophet ﷺ then says, between my mimbar and my rawda is a garden of Jannah. Wa mimbari al hawd, and my pulpit is on the hawd of Kawthar. La ilaha illallah. May Allah grant us a'la al-firdaus, inshallah. A place that we all seek out is the Rawdatul Jannah. And the Rawdatul Jannah will be a testimony on the day of Qiyamah that you have performed salah at that space, in that space. And inshallah it will be a testimony that we were there, and hopefully we won't be deprived, inshallah, in the year after of it. Ameen, inshallah, ameen. Between my mimbar and my qabr. So this is the side of the qabr of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the mihrab. We can see this, right? Can you see? Kinda, right? This is the mihrab. The mihrab is what? The musalla area of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is the mimbar of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not the actual mimbar, but the spot of the mimbar of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the mihrab of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the side of the qabr of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These pillars all represent something. The pillar of the haris, the pillar of the security, the pillar of the guest, the pillar of Abu Lubaba, the one who made tawbah, and he was forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of his tawbah. He was tied against the pillar. For 3 days he was tied against the pillar. And they fed him for 3 days. They gave him to drink for 3 days. He was a war captive. And he, after the 3rd day, he said, I want to take the hand of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, no, you were a prisoner. What changed your mind? You were against us. You were fighting against us. You were enemy against us. What changed your mind? He said, by Allah, I swear, I never saw a people serve their master the way the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam served Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I never saw in my life the hospitality of people the way I saw the hospitality of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he embraced Islam. It's exactly the same thing we're seeing in Palestine. They are the real mujahideen. They are the real heirs of the replicas of the companions of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How they treat a captive. Subhanallah. They will go into detail. You know all these details. This was the real way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After 3 days he embraced Islam. You'll never know. Maybe in a few days time, one of the captives of the other side will come to say that, you know, I actually took the shahada just by the way while I was in prison, or at least while I was imprisoned in Palestine. Subhanallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen Islam, inshallah. And this is a very important pillar over here. This is the pillar of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, if you enter the Rawdatul Jannah, seek the pillar of Aisha. When you enter the Rawdah, seek the pillar of Aisha. This is the pillar of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. There's many details that we can share, but time doesn't allow us to show all these details. But all this is part of the Rawdah. Not just 1, 2, 3 musallas. It goes right to the back. There's about probably roughly 20 softs. It could probably occupy about 500 more, probably 500 plus people in that Rawdah area. There's a slot, etc. And this logistics we'll speak about in another time. But that is the place we want to be at. And that's the place in where we make dua. What do I do in the Rawdah? What do I ask for? I heard so much about this Rawdah. Everybody speaks about Rawdah. What do I do there? It's sufficient for you just to be there even if you do nothing. It's sufficient just for you to be there even if you do nothing. But if you have the opportunity to make 2 rak'ats salah, then you are blessed to make 2 rak'ats of salah. And if you have the opportunity to raise your hands and ask of Allah and make dua, then you have the opportunity. You're making dua to Allah in such a Mubarak space, wherein your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so great that if you raise your hands, as the scholars would say, if you raise your hands in a place such as this Mubarak place of the Rawdatul Jannah, by Allah that du'as will be accepted, and may Allah accept inshallah, ameen. Ya Latif. Allah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. May Allah take us to the Rawdah inshallah, ameen. So the males will have a time to go to the Rawdah, just as the females will also have an allocated time to go to the Rawdah. There's a certain time for the males and a certain time for the females. Even though the ladies won't receive this first saf, that's all. From here on they receive everything. They can make salah in this whole area right to the back, except this very first saf over here. So remember this side, we said this is the side of the Prophet ﷺ. So I'm going to demonstrate to you quickly how the Prophet ﷺ actually lies buried. Tamam? So as an example, okay? As an example, if we are coming from the right hand side of the masjid, which is now our Bab Salam, right? The right hand side of the masjid, which is Bab Salam. The left hand side of the masjid is known as Bab Baqi. It's actually just exactly like where Abadiya Istighma. Ajib. The right side is the entrance and the left side is the maqbara. Jannatul Baqi is on the left of the haram. And we also have maybe we must call our maqbara Jannatul Baqi. What was the other name for Jannatul Baqi? Anybody? What was the previous name of Jannatul Baqi? Gharqad. Gharqad. The previous name of Jannatul Baqi is Gharqad. Thorny bushes. What was Pook Road's or Johnson Road's previous name? Say how there? Dwaring Hoogten. What does Dwaring Hoogten mean? Thorny bushes. Everything our pious did in this community of Cape Town wasn't just by the way. You may come in the 20th century and think that everything was done by the way and by khalufis and they didn't know what they were talking about. Where did Dwaring Hoogte come from if Jannatul Baqi's previous name was Gharqad? Everything the pious of this ummah, especially here in Cape Town, what they did was they attached everything to something that was very special. Every name that was given was attached to something that was already very special. Hence, when you think about Dwaring Hoogte, you think about Jannatul Baqi because they had the same name before. May Allah elevate the pious of this ummah that passed before us, inshallah. And all our pious imams and our imam and mashayikh that passed, and may Allah grant them highest abodes in Jannah, inshallah. Amin. So Bab Salam is on the right. Bab Baqi, and the reason why it's actually called Bab Baqi, time is very little. Why it's called Bab Baqi? Because it's in the direction of Jannatul Baqi, right? So the men will enter, only the men, right? The ladies will enter from the side of Bab Nisa, and then will greet the Prophet ﷺ from behind his head ﷺ, or on the side of his head ﷺ. But the men will go from the front, right? And I will demonstrate to you how the Prophet ﷺ is laying. So the Prophet ﷺ is laying on his right hand side, of course, and is laying, of course, not the way I'm going to lay now, but just an idea, like this, on the right. Okay? There's actually a sunnah way to lay between the sunnats of Maghrib, between the sunnats of Fajr, between Adhan and the Iqamah. It's actually sunnah to lay like this in the masjid. So the Prophet's facing this way. So his face is facing you, right? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Those on the screen didn't see now because Zaid is sitting over there. Zaid is admiring the Imam. So I don't know. But the Prophet ﷺ is laying on his right hand side, I'm facing the camera. So when you're greeting the Prophet ﷺ, you are facing him directly. Then at the chest of Rasulullah lies the face of Sayyidina Abu Bakr. That means you're facing him also directly. And at the chest of Abu Bakr, you are facing Sayyidina Umar, which means you are also facing him directly. Right? I'm going to show you an image of it later. And then we can just get a better idea about it, inshallah. So when you're facing the Prophet ﷺ, right, you're facing him directly. The Prophet ﷺ reminded us in a beautiful tradition that the one who visits my grave, where is this now? Did I go on? The one who visits my grave, man zara qabri wajabat lahu shafa'ati. The one who visits my grave, it is wajib for me to intercede for him on the day of Qiyamah. Hadith of Rasulullah. The one who visits me after my passing, as if he has visited me during my lifetime. The scholars speak about when greeting the Prophet ﷺ outside the city of Madinah, it reaches the Prophet ﷺ via the aid of an angel. But when standing in front of the qabr of Rasulullah ﷺ, you are greeting him directly. You are not greeting the gates, neither the walls, neither the cloth, neither the soil. Because our deen is not a nonsensical deen, but rather we are greeting him in the first person directly. SallAllahu Wasallam, and he is replying to you directly. SallAllahu Wasallam. Right? So before we go into that, Rasulullah says, "Oh Allah, make us love Madinah as we loved Makkah, or even more than that. Oh Allah, give us blessings in the sa' and the mud." The measurements is meaning for measurements, and make the climate of Madinah suitable for us, and divert its fever towards Al-Juhfa. That's why people ask, can they go there? Gaze upon the skies in Madinah, the streets of Madinah, the mountains of Madinah, the soils in Madinah. Walk around knowing that the Prophet ﷺ walked around in Madinah. Walk around knowing that the Prophet ﷺ potentially walked on a space where you just walked, or prostrated on a space in where you just prostrated, or cried before Allah where you just sat, or stood before Allah where you just sat. And everything in Madinah is beautiful. And that's how we enter Madinah. There's some question that we ask. I think the adhan is going to go off now in a few minutes. If you can just allow me another 5-10 minutes. Not something that you're going to be questioned about on the day of Qiyamah, but again it speaks about the length of the love the scholars have for the cities, and the intensity of the love that the scholars spoke about in the cities with regards to the city of Makkah and the city of Medina. They speak about what is more virtuous, Makkah or Medina. So the scholars speak about what is more virtuous, Makkah or Medina. They say Medina is more virtuous than Makkah, or rather than, to be more specific, the area in the Prophet ﷺ lies buried is more virtuous than Makkah. They go on by saying that even just the soil that envelopes the grave of Rasulullah ﷺ is more virtuous than Makkah. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ is Allah's best creation, and there's nothing better than him. He is Allah's best creation, and there's nothing better than him. Allah created everything. Right? I said the other day, on Saturday, the Hajj walk, it's actually a poor translation if you say Allah created everything, which means Allah is sitting back and relaxing. No. Allah is continuing to create always. The hearing that actually takes place now, Allah is creating that hearing now for you. The seeing that you're doing now is that Allah is creating that sight for you. If Allah had to stop creating everything, then everything won't exist. Therefore, Allah is always creating. Right? But just for the sake of understanding, Allah created everything. Allah created the Kaaba, right? Allah created the Makkah. Allah created Jannah. Allah created the Arsh. Allah created the Kursi. So if everything was created, who's the best of Allah's creation? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Everything is created, right? Kursi is created. Arsh is created. Jannah is created. Dunya is created. Angels are created. Jinn are created. Everything is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah said that He is the best of Allah's creation. So there's nothing better than Him. Hence the scholars speak about He being more virtuous, and the area and the space where He lies buried is more virtuous than Makkah to Mukarramah. But that's just for the sake of our knowledge. Tamam, this is what the men will see. Facing the Mubarak Muwajaha of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in the 60s and the 70s and maybe the early 80s, the ladies were also able to see this, where they were actually were allowed to actually go inside the chamber of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 60s, 50s, 70s, I spoke to Shaykh Amin. He said there was a time where they were actually sitting next to the qabr of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like we go to the kramats and we sit there by the kramat. They were able to actually do that time. Right? Because the masses, of course, wasn't as much as it is today, and may Allah increase in the number of the ummah of Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the men will greet from the side. So they will enter through Bab Salam, which is the right, and exit through Bab Baqi. So on your image over there, you will now look at it from your left hand side, okay? Which is technically your right, if you just picture it, right? You will walk right down and you will come to this area over here, this big gold knob over here, and that is where it's written Rasulullah, and that's where it's written Abu Bakr, and that's where it's written Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala. So you'll greet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from here, you'll greet Sayyidina Umar, and then you'll greet Sayyidina Abu Bakr, and then you will greet Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala. If you allow me very quickly, we'll go through some etiquettes. We have to conclude this topic because next week we want to speak about Makkah and Ihram and Ghusl and so on, because we have very limited time before Ramadan and there's still much we must talk about. And that is now visiting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So what are the etiquettes of visiting? Right? We spoke about Him being the best of Allah's creation. Right? So now there has to be a certain etiquette. So many of the scholars, I only highlighted a few things. There's a book available also that I also highlighted very basic etiquettes of visiting Rasulullah and the very basic etiquettes of making ghusl as well as the umrah. The book is available after the salah. You'll find it to be very simple, inshallah. So what are the very basic etiquettes? Many scholars speak about various basic etiquettes of visiting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? He sallallahu alaihi wasallam is more beloved to us than our families. He's more beloved to us than our parents. He's more beloved to us than our children. He's more beloved to us than our wealth. He's more beloved to us than our property. He's more beloved to us than anything that we have been gifted by Allah. Right? Allah reminds us in the Quran, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ وأبناؤكم وأزواجكم وعشيرتكم وأموال اقترفتموها وتجارة تخشون كسادها ومساكن ترضونها أحب إليكم من الله ورسوله. That all the categories that we have mentioned about loving, that shouldn't be more than the love that you have for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he is the one that you should love the most, even more than your parents. That's an instruction by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. More than your wife. So if you're going to visit somebody that we were supposed to love, and may Allah increase us in love for him, inshallah, ameen, then we need to look our best. And we need to smell our best. And we need to dress our best. Because he is someone that deserves that respect, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On the day you got married, you wore the best dress, right? On the day you were invited to come for an interview, you put the best perfume. You someone went to go buy your Armani perfume on a credit card that you thought that you're going to get the job to pay it back. But then, unfortunately, you didn't. And now you're sitting with the Armani perfume that you can't take back because you used it. It's part of the etiquettes of visiting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's just, these are etiquettes that the scholars speak about just to enhance the visit, to make it even more beautiful. Right? He's not going to judge you by the way you look, but rather, like the uncle was saying, you're going to be looked upon what's in your heart. And many a times, your actions display what is in your heart. You will know somebody's character by the way he is and how he is inside. The way he speaks, the way he acts, the way he's with his family, the way he's with his children. If you want to know somebody, you will know him through his outward, and you will assume his inward, right? And many a times, if his outward is beautiful, many a times, illa masha'Allah, then his inward is beautiful. And hence you can't come to the masjid looking like Vikoma'an, because you're standing before Allah. Right? You're standing before Allah. And you need to look your best when standing before Allah. And you need to smell your best when standing before Allah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And hence the siwak is part of the sunnah. Perfume is part of the sunnah. Dressing your best is part of the sunnah when performing salah. So if that is the etiquette of salah, then similarly that would be then another etiquette when visiting Allah's best creation, Sayyidina Muhammadin SallAllahu Wasallam. And this is what the advice of the Sahaba and those that followed after them would give. By perfuming, performing ghusl, dressing the best. Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik, or as rather Imam Malik rahmatullah, would actually encourage people to buy a brand new outfit before visiting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is all just part of some etiquette. Part of the sunnah is to actually give a charity before visiting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why to give a charity? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha najaytumur rasul faqaddimu bayna najwakum sadaqah. That when you approach Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before you come to him, give a sadaqah. This was actually compulsory before, it was actually farad. The Sahaba complained, Ya Rasulullah, we don't have money to give a sadaqah before we come to visit you. And hence it became part of the sunnah before visiting Rasulullah to give a sadaqah. Why to give a sadaqah? In hope that the charity that I'm giving will accept my visit to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We'll go through it quickly, right? The Prophet said, the one who visits me, my intercession is compulsory for him. After my passing, whoever visits my grave and after performing it will have will be as if he visited me during my lifetime. Intent drawing close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's one tradition that actually says the one who performs Hajj and doesn't visit me, faqad jafani, the one has actually insulted me. If you go to Makkah and you perform Hajj and you don't visit Rasulullah, the Prophet ﷺ said, you have actually insulted me. Because how can you perform Hajj and the one who taught you about the whole Hajj and you leave him out? He's the one that told you to go on Arafah. He's the one that performed the tawaf. He's the one that showed us what to do in Sa'i. He's the one that kissed the Hajar al-Aswad and Rukn Yamani and Maqam Ibrahim, etc., etc., etc. And you ignore him. The Prophet ﷺ reminded us by saying, the one who goes for Hajj and he doesn't visit me, faqad jafani, he actually insulted me. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yearn for him and yearn to meet him. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we enter with our body, our heart, our mind, our soul, and rendering salawat upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So very quickly, very briefly, we will end with this inshallah. We'll call the adhan in 2-3 minutes. We'll call the adhan now in 2-3 minutes inshallah. But these are just some of the etiquettes of visiting, right? That we've mentioned before. So what do we do when we visit? What do we do when we visit? What do we say? What do I say when I stand in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Very simply, we could say, As-salatu was-salamu alayka, Ya Rasulullah. Peace and salams upon you, Ya Rasulullah. First person. Not him, not it, or not they. You. As-salatu was-salamu alayka, Ya Rasulullah. Upon you, Ya Rasulullah. Because he hears. He's able to hear. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? He's able to hear. And we have no doubt in that. We must have yaqeen. We said until the yaqeen. We must have no doubt that the Prophet ﷺ is able to hear. We must have no doubt that the Prophet ﷺ is aware of your presence. You must have no doubt that the Prophet ﷺ is replying to you. The Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, how will we know when you reply? After you passed away. How will we know? The Prophet ﷺ reminded them about a verse, Inna salataka sakanul lahum. My reply to you will be a peace in the heart. And when you feel that goosebumps and the heart is emotional when reading salawat, that emotion, that feeling that you're getting is actually the reply of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inna salataka sakanul lahum. Your salawat brings peace to them. Some may be able to hear him. And we don't want to go into much detail, but there's so much we can speak about it, how many people heard Rasulullah. The Prophet ﷺ says, the one who sees me in a dream has indeed seen me, because shaitan cannot take my form. And these are all realities, and may Allah grant us a gaze upon Rasulullah ﷺ, a gaze, addressing him in a present tense. Part of the etiquette is to reflect on addressing him by remembering the verses that Allah has praised him in the Quran with. How Allah praised him in the Quran, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, Ya al-muddathir, wa rafa'na laka dhikrak wad-duha. And these are the verses of the Quran. Renew our tawbah. Why renew the tawbah in the presence of Rasulullah? Ya Rasulullah, we've neglected so much of your sunnah. Ya Rasulullah, we've neglected so much of your way, Ya Rasulullah. Ask of Allah, Allah forgive us while we are in your presence, Ya Rasulullah. renew the shahada, because he is the one that has gifted you that shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu annaka Muhammad Rasulullah. And you, Ya Rasulullah, the, indeed the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All this are found in the book. Remember the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Pray for the ummah, because that was his concern. And if you have the same concern that he has, then he will be happy, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that was his concern. His concern was always the ummah. Right? And then when you are done, you read Surah Al-Fatiha, 3 times Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, and then Surah Yasin, etc. And there are so many other etiquettes that we can adopt. Read a Fatiha upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is he in need of your Fatiha now? Is he in need of your dua now? Is he in need of you greeting him now? How do we know this? Allah said, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. We have raised you above all stations, Ya Rasulullah. If Allah said we have raised you above all stations, how is your weak rendering of salawat to him going to raise him more than how Allah has already raised him? He is already raised by Allah. He is already elevated by Allah. We are just benefiting ourselves by visiting him, because when he responds, he says, wa alayka salam, wa rahmatullah, wa barakatuh. Imagine that reply. When he says, peace to you, mercy upon you, forgiveness to you, and blessings to you. We are more in need of the reply than what he is in need of the greeting. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. La ilaha illallah. Allah. May Allah take us to Madinah, inshallah, ameen. May Allah take us to the qabr of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a visit to him in the best of spirits, in the best of health. That he accepts our visit before him sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. That when we visited him sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, that we are able to experience a reply from him sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. And that one day, inshallah, before we pass from this world, we are able to see him in our dream, inshallah. And in a wakeful state, inshallah. And may Allah gift it to our families and our parents and our children and our wives, our brothers and our sisters, and those that are present and those that are viewing, and the ummah of Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah gather us with him in A'la al-Firdaus, inshallah. Ma'an Nabiyyin and Siddiqeen and Shuhada and Salihin. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursalin. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Allahu Akbar.